I want to point out, for the record, that we are aware that the Board of Education asked for planning and design purposes for their overall facilities transformation at $3 million for that this year. And what we will end up providing is $2.5 million. But that was in consultation with the Board of Education the last few days. And they are comfortable with the $2.5 million. If there is a need for the additional money in next year's capital budget, we will be sensitive to that they were shortchanged from their perspective, $500,000 this year. But it's important to say we did not take money out of schools and the education accounts to put in other departments. We moved money from we moved from one Board of Ed account to another account. We took some money out of the $3 million proposal and put it into their Board of Ed paving program, and we took some other money and put it into their asbestos programs. The board recognizes that these are important programs, and so we're going to have it. We're going to have our cake and eat it too. We're going to get more paving done. We're going to make sure the asbestos gets addressed. And when the Board of Ed needs that money, when they move far enough along where they may need the additional $500,000, whether it's later this year or the next capital budget cycle, we will address that issue at the time. So we think it spreads the money around in a way that's extremely important. When it comes to parking lots and asbestos, we're dealing with safety issues, extremely important safety issues. So we felt, and they agreed, that it was important to move the money into these accounts. Thank you.
Ms. Bowman.
And I just want to echo what the Council President said. We did distribute some of the funds from the feasibility, the study that the Board of Education wants to some other items of high need in the school system. We definitely want to make sure that if there is, I understand it's not it's a possible imminent situation with the asbestos. It's not actually airborne asbestos, so we just want to clarify that. But it's very important that we get ahead of that situation, and also the paving. As far as the $2.5 million, I know we had some concern about that in our community. Basically, I know Mr. Hamilton mentioned that whatever you want to do with this funding, you're looking to do in the next 2 or 3 months, and definitely we just want to make sure it's heard that we're not looking for anything to be done as far as a school in South Norfolk in the next 2 to 3 months, because we are definitely still in the phase of listening to our constituents to make sure that we know what we want and that is the best thing for our community. So I think if I understand from emails and different conversations that will not be happening in the next 2 or 3 months with any of this funding, and that will still be able to be discussed. Just want to make sure that is out there and said. And with that, I would support this budget.
Thank you. Further discussion. Mr. Hempstead.
Just so we're bipartisan. Chairman Kaisi, thank you for allowing the voices to move money around without any great objections. I think we heard loud and clear from Mr. Hamilton about some of our concerns about utilizing that entire $3 million by next year. But we also, I don't think we've damaged it in any way or whatever. A real shout out to Sharon Stewart. Faye Bowman, God, Faye Bowman. Why was her name on my head?
I just passed her driving.
I know. Faye, shout out to you for bringing up the asbestos issue, because it was an important issue that we probably didn't take notice of the first go around with that, looking at the capital budget. They had called out for particular schools. Sometimes they don't, but I think that's money well spent for the safety of kids. Is why I mentioned the sidewalks and all that, safety for our children, safety for the parents. So I think this is a good compromise, and that's what capital budget's all about.
Further discussion. Mr. Kaides.
Yeah, Ms. Bowman touched on it. Just to clarify the asbestos removal, I don't want to start getting the calls tomorrow that the schools are unsafe. And Mr. Odell's here to confirm it's in the carpet. When they remove carpet, they'll need to schedule it, but we're complying with current asbestos procedure, so no worries out there. And also to reconfirm that the Board of Education is okay with taking this funding from their facilities assessment study implementation. So, don't call me tomorrow.
Further discussion? Mr. Kimmel?
Yeah, one final point I bring up every year, for folks who are wondering, well, why don't we just spend more money? I mean, we're going into debt, why not bond for more money? The total request that the different agencies that address the capital budget had to deal with was roughly about $46 million, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly, maybe more, and the final capital budget is around 29 million. We have certain parameters that we have to stay within based on our overall debt service and what the rating agencies like to look at when it comes to the solvency of the city and how the city will move forward going into the future. And so there's only a certain level of debt that the rating agencies will allow and keep us at a AAA rating. And we have always been within those thresholds. And that's why one of the reasons we've been able to maintain the AAA rating, which enables us to borrow the money that we're spending at such a low interest rate, okay? So there are very, very strict parameters on how much we can spend, and our capital budgets are roughly the same every year. I will say this year, and I credit the mayor for this, it's a little higher, our capital expenses, because we're aware that we've got to really begin to move on certain things in the city, and we're making a lot of progress, and now is not the time to slow down. But if you're ever looking at the time to look at the capital budget, just don't go into the various departments. Look early on in the financial analysis, and you'll see the debt ratios for per capita debt, however you want to look at it, market value debt, and we are in good shape, not only this year, but in years going forward. So that means we will be able to fund the Board of Ed's facilities transformation moving ahead. You just can't spend it all now. It won't work that way if anybody is wondering why we just don't borrow more. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, carries.